And so this is the problem, you know. I mean, you can't imagine what is in the Sharia Criminal Offences Act. Many Muslims don't even know.
Yeah.
Every sin, almost, is turned into a crime against the state.
Yeah.
And in the Sisters in Islam memorandum to the government, is it the role of the government to turn every sin into an offense, into a crime against the state, and to prescribe all these draconian punishments? Everybody sins. For example, there is a fatwa that says smoking is haram. And it is gazetted.
Yeah.
But do you know any men or women who smoke who've been jailed? You know, the whole criminal justice system will collapse if you implement the law. You know, the imams and the ustaz and the qadis will all be in jail. But they don't implement the law. And this is what happens when you use, you know, religion to enforce morality and use the massive coercive powers of the state to impose a particular kind of behavior. You pick and choose. Then persecution happens. Everybody commits sins, yeah? Drinking is haram. It's an offense. How many people are in jail? Indecent behavior is a crime in the Sharia criminal law. A virgin woman who lives home without her parents' permission is a crime. It is crazy. That law is a crazy law and really has no basis in Islam, has no basis in Islamic legal theory, it contradicts the federal constitution, all the fundamental liberties of the federal constitution violated by that. A fatwa that's been gazetted, if you have an opinion, books that are against the fatwa, you're committing an offense.
Yeah.
You know, it's really crazy. You cannot live in a society governed by such laws. That's why every time the Sharia criminal offences law gets enforced, there's just public outrage because the public cannot accept this kind of punitive, approach to personal behavior, yeah, and personal actions. You know, it's not harm against the public. It's your personal choice, and it really should be between you and God. The state has no role to play. As citizens, we don't even know the laws that govern us. And when we sent a memorandum to the Prime Minister Tun Mahathir then in 1997, he too was shocked. But the cabinet passed this law, but nobody scrutinized. So the whole lawmaking process, there's no scrutiny. And especially when it comes to Islamic law, it's drafted by JAKIM. It gets sent to the Aegis chambers, and I was told in Aegis chambers, nobody dares to dot an I or cross a T on anything that comes from JAKIM. And then it gets presented to the cabinet. Nobody debates, questions it. And then it gets approved by the cabinet, then it gets sent to parliament, it gets sent to the legislative assembly. Because it's Islam, nobody debates it. And it gets passed, and we don't know it's been passed because the press, there's no debate, the press does not cover. So we are all ignorant until the law is enforced.
Yeah.
And the law is enforced, then all hell breaks loose. And we've been fighting the Sharia criminal laws since 1997, yeah, when those three girls were arrested. So it's the law should not exist at all, and we need to do something about that. And I really hope we need to maintain the pressure on this government to really review, and repeal the Sharia criminal offences law.
You have worked so long to deliver, parts to the process of this. But when we're dealing with issues like this, it is a psychology we are dealing with. I think many of us around here, need to understand sometimes how deep it goes.
Yeah.
Because it's a process of conditioning that has happened. And there are a lot of people who may not even believe in the institutions we already have and may want other kinds of institutions. So for them, institutional reform is really quite a non-issue. How do you begin to deconstruct the psychology that has been built? And many of the people who helped build this psychology are in power today, still.
Yeah. Well, you really need to build an alternative narrative. I think it's so important that more voices speak out. Yeah, and not just the same old people speaking out. So that's why, like Sisters in Islam, we do trainings all over the country to really build that constituency of young people, of single mothers, of people who've been discriminated, who suffer the discrimination and the oppression of these discriminatory laws, to begin to speak out. So I think it's important that more and more voices speak up. Why did change happen? Why did we finally have the courage to go out and vote for change in spite of the fears of the uncertainty and the instability and the chaos of the riots, race riots that might happen, you know, all those fears that were built in us? Why did we finally have the courage to make that change possible? Because of the decades of work that civil society in particular have been doing to build an alternative vision, an alternative narrative that, you know, of a different Malaysia. And for us, you know, the Muslims like us, it's really of a just Islam. And it's not just Sisters in Islam now. We have G25, you have Islamic Renaissance Front, you have other groups that are now organized and speaking out. So the challenge is, how do we get these voices and more voices out there in the media to start? I mean, for me, the fact that Mujahid actually, even though he's been going back and forth, but the fact that you have a minister of religion who actually said that the LGBT community, you know, should not be discriminated against, that they have rights to employment, rights to, you know, freedom of movement and all that. For me, that is so important that finally you actually have someone in government with a religious background, you know, who's using this language of rights. And that is important because when someone in authority begins to change the discourse, it does force other people to think. I mean, today I had to give a little, you know, talk at my neighborhood Malaysia Day, and I deliberately said that, you know, like when we want to build this new Malaysia, that the rights of the LGBT community, people of different sexual orientation and gender identity, their rights need to be upheld, need to be recognized, they deserve a life of dignity. So it's important, like even in a neighborhood situation, that you start with using this language, you know, so that you expand that space for discussion on all these issues.